In the history of life on Earth, dinosaurs were relative latecomers. A journey into the distant past, far removed from the familiar haunts of the iconic dinosaurs or the well-trampled world of pre-humans. There is a different Earth before the dinosaurs. Dinosaurs didn't appear out of thin air. So where did they come from, and what led to the arrival of dinosaurs? About 4.5 billion years ago, the Sun was formed from a cloud of gas. 4.6 billion years ago, our solar system was a multicolored cloud made of hydrogen and helium, known as a solar nebula. This solar nebula was squeezed to force out the current layout of our solar system by numerous supernova explosions. The explosions led to nuclear chain reactions at the core of the cloud, heat it, and make it glow. That's how our sun came to life. Heavy debris collided and bound together. This ordeal led to a pile of dust and debris, whose center had dense material enough to form a dense metallic core. The protoplanet had lighter materials build up its crust. Between the crust and the core is a liquid core, which is what creates the Earth's magnetic field. The thin basalt crust that the Earth had just formed was smashed by an asteroid, which was the size of Mars. The young planet was knocked apart, and its debris was catapulted and combined to form the Moon. The Earth started to rotate too fast after the collision, and days got as short as 5 hours. However, the Moon came to our rescue and slowed down our planet. The Earth's evolutionary process started with meteorites constantly falling, the Moon's gravitational forces causing hurricanes and volcanic eruptions. The hellish Earth started forming an atmosphere from the gas that volcanoes released. Water deposition surfaced by comets colliding with the Earth's crust. Earth was a lifeless dome, having very little oxygen and a non-hospitable land to live. The thick gas clouds didn't allow solar rays to enter the Earth till 3.5 billion years ago. 3.5 billion years ago, solar energy ignited life undersea. These organisms were bacteria and archaea, and they didn't need oxygen. A common ancestor gave rise to these organisms, and they dominated the Earth and evolved throughout the Archean Eon, which lasted for 2 billion years. Sometime after the 3 billionth year, the bacteria turned light and water into energy and released oxygen into the atmosphere, thus forming a habitable place. The oxygen was used to rust the iron on the ocean. Big deal, right? Except it was a huge deal, as almost all anaerobic bacteria perished when oxygen was released into the atmosphere. Oxygen resulted in being toxic to the algae, and they ate themselves to death and sank to the bottom. And these algae carcasses are today's oil. This event was known as the oxidation event. As of now, carbon and methane make up the atmosphere. Before 2.3 billion years ago, the oxidation event caused the Earth to freeze over. Earth was fully iced in during this period, even on the hot equator. So at this time, the volcanic activities of the planet slowed down. After 300 million years of utter ice, the Sun came to the rescue, and the ice age of the Uranian started melting over time. Oxygen was released into the atmosphere when the ice started melting. But all of this was just the tip of the iceberg. The continents were drifting through the world's oceans, forming the supercontinent Rodinia, and all the oceans formed Moravia. As the lands started growing apart, life on Earth reappeared. Earth was emptied of all kinds of living organisms, so it had to undo all the catastrophe and redo the birth of life. The protozoans started appearing just then. In the Neoproterozoic era, the first herbivores appeared. But ice rained over 2 more times during this era of Earth. But algae, sponges, and fungi survived somehow. Sponges are said to have arrived more than 800 million years ago. Sponges are what became of the first reef builders on Earth, thanks to their hard skeletons. Rewind 541 million years ago, a wild explosion of new life, forms of life started on Earth. Living organisms started having not only an internal, but also an external skeleton. Hard-body animals came to life, including mollusks, echinoderms, fish, and starfish started arising. Unique feeding styles partitioned the environment, so a food chain was formed. Plants started to sprout on Earth's surface, and animals reigned over the land. The animals had trouble residing on land with both gills and lungs, so they had to return to the water. But eventually, the animals evolved into amphibians and adapted to land. The early land animals had thicker, scaly skin, like a modern-day crocodile, which made it easier for them to stay out of water. Even the earliest animals had parts of instructions for complex bodies. Many of these early organisms were evolutionary experiments, such as the five-eyed opabinia. Different kinds of animals thrived and dominated Earth for hundreds of millions of years, but eventually went extinct. This was during the Paleozoic era. 50 million years before the dinosaurs came to life, the Permian period had all the land masses collected as a single whole Pangea. The first large plant and meat-eating animals evolved during this period. The animals of this period are said to have the ugliest fossils, such as Parasaurs and many other animals. Dimetrodon existed at this time, a kind of mammal that shared similar characteristics to bears. A kind of Dimetrodon, cynodonts, have fossil evidence showing that they hunted in packs. Sharks and rays blossomed, and fish with bony skeletons evolved, and on land, insects matured to have mouth structures that could suck or pierce. Although there were early versions of the dinosaurs, the dominant life form was the trilobite, visually somewhere between a woodlouse and an armadillo. The tenure of this newly formed life was cut short when a mass extinction occurred in the Permian period when an asteroid hit the planet. If the mass extinction at the end of the Permian had not happened, these animals would have carried on lumbering everywhere as perfectly satisfactory, well-armored large herbivores. The extinction is said to have wiped out 90% of species living at the time, creating the void that the dinosaurs and many other animals would occupy. For the next million years after the mass extinction, lava oozed from the ground, volcanic eruptions cropped up, and evolution had to take hold once more after all this ordeal settled down. In the Mesozoic era, the great dinosaurs got their start. Among the groups to evolve in the wake of the disaster were the first archosaurs. These were the earliest representatives of the group to which crocodiles, pterosaurs, dinosaurs, and numerous other lineages of reptiles belonged. The Triassic became the heyday of the archosaurs, but dinosaurs were relative latecomers. Acelysaurus is known as dinosaurs' closest relatives. It was not until about 230 million years ago, in the late Triassic, that the first dinosaurs appeared. Living in a world inhabited by many other archosaurs, the dinosaurs were relatively small animals, but a mass extinction cleared many archosaur lineages about 200 million years ago. Dinosaurs, however, persisted through the event, and the beginning of the Jurassic marked the beginning of their rise to ecological dominance. Dinosaurs split into two major groups relatively early in their evolution, the Saurischians and the Ornithischians. But during the Jurassic, the different lineages within these groups evolved into a dazzling array of creatures. New types of large predatory theropods started appearing. Not only were there more dinosaurs around during the early Jurassic, but they were becoming adapted into a variety of shapes and sizes not seen before. Altogether, the story of dinosaurs is a tale of how life on Earth responds to mass extinctions. Dinosaurs rose to prestige because of mass extinctions, yet most of them, except their bird descendants, caved to another ecological catastrophe 65 million years ago, which made room for our ancestors, the mammal. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, let us know what you would like the next video to be about. I'll be reading you in the comments. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for future updates. See you soon.